Welcome into a loaded Friday edition of the Desmond Johnson Show. It's kind of a college basketball centric show. We haven't had a chance to really focus on that with high school football playoffs starting tonight. The Panthers are on a bye this week, but we got a whole lot of sports going on Tobacco Road Sports Radio this week. A little bit later on the show, we got Bynum stopping by to talk about North Carolina hoops. We've got Steve Wiseman stopping by from the Durham Herald Sun to talk about Duke hoops. And we've got Ryan Stone with his weekly best bets. But before we get to any of them, it's the North Carolina A&T play-by-play man, Spencer Turkin, stopping by to talk about the North Carolina A&T Aggies. You can catch them football and basketball this weekend on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. We give you all that info and more. Let's go ahead and hit the intro. It's the Desmond Johnson Show.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city needs that. I've been #1, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you want and get your weed whack. I'm going harder than a martyr on the starter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's 4th and inches, I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And welcome into a Friday edition of the Desmond Johnson Show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. You can watch the video on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. It's brought to you by Emergency Responders Credit Union in Winston-Salem. If you are a emergency responder in the Triad looking for financial services, ERCU is for you. They're located off of Link Road overall in Winston-Salem. They can handle all of your financial needs. Again, loaded show today. We're talking Carolina hoops, Duke hoops. We've got a whole lot of stuff going on with A&T this weekend. I'm trying to get all this situated because I have to touch pretty much all of it. A&T taking on Townsend Saturday in college football action. It's actually an early pregame show, 11:30 a.m. pregame, 12 o'clock kickoff. You can hear that on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. I think Sirius XM channel 383, if I'm not mistaken. It bounces around a couple. I'll get clarification on that. And terrestrial radio in the Triad on 1400 AM, 105.3 FM, The Light in Guilford County and Greensboro. On Sunday, A&T men's basketball will be taking on the Citadel. That's Sunday, November the 17th. Hear that on Tobacco Road Sports Radio as well. 1:30 p.m. pregame, 2 o'clock tip-off. Brian Holloway will actually be on the call for that game there. But the normal voice for the North Carolina A&T Aggies, he shares that title with Donald Ware, I guess you could say. It's Spencer Turkin in the house. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm good. Des, appreciate you having me. Obviously, basketball season is in full swing, so you and I are chatting a few times a week, and it's been a solid start to the year. I know that the wins and losses aren't exactly where the Aggies would have hoped that they are at this point, but you've been listening, and I know a lot of people who are listening to this show have also been tuned in. Things just seem and sound a little different this year.
They do. They really do. There was some games, I'm not going to lie, towards the end of last year where we were kind of dragging. Towards the end, I'm like, let's just go ahead and do what we got to do. But this year, there seems to be a different spark around it. Year 2 with head coach Monty Ross, he leading this program. And you can tell he's kind of been in the portal doing some things. They're 1-2 after falling to George Washington on Tuesday night. But calling these games, you've had 2 away games you've called since then before we get into this weekend. What's been the biggest difference so far in year 1 to year 2 for head coach Monty Ross and his roster to you when you're calling them from the side here?
I'd say the biggest difference is our size. We have 4 guys that can play center that are 6'9" and taller. Last year, our center was 6'6". So that's the biggest difference so far, is we look like a basketball team. We also have multiple scoring threats. It's not just Landon Glasper, who's been fantastic so far, but Jonathan Lamoth has been wonderful. And Ryan Forrest, the last couple of games, has really looked like a guy that could put the team on his back if needed. And so to watch him slash all over the court and really get to the hole, it's been awfully impressive. And Landon Glasper continues to just do things that Landon Glasper does. He went 8 for 12 against GW from the field. He had 22 points to lead all scorers. He really is coming into his own, and he's becoming a more efficient basketball player, which is a great sign for A&T.
Doing those games, and we do the away games together. I'll be in the studio doing scoreboard updates or whatnot, and helping out throughout the game producing. And the one thing I have noticed in the 2 games that we've produced, last year, if A&T got down, it was really hard for them to catch back up to a team and make it competitive. Whereas this year, regardless, even Wake Forest, a couple of games ago, it kind of, there's an ebb and flow to it in terms of this A&T team can score. Like they literally can score. So they can be down in a hole and it's still, okay, they can get a little run here and get this back competitive. And that's exactly what happened in that George Washington game on Tuesday night, where they were down and then they got a little run there, made it really competitive by halftime. And to be honest, George Washington was pretty lucky to win that game, by the time they got to the end of it. And that's kind of new. Haven't seen that in a while from North Carolina North Carolina A&T men's basketball. Is the biggest roster difference the size to you, or is there something else that stands out?
It's the size, it's the scoring ability, it's the overall talent of the players on this roster. I think that Coach Ross got a late start to building his team last season, just based on when he was hired, and he threw together the best he could, what he was able to get down on paper. Luckily, Cam Shell and Landon Glasper and Nikos Hidikudis and Jalal Mackay were part of that nucleus that were there last year. They're back this year. These are guys that we feel like are going to have a big time impact on our program. And now you throw in some of these other young men that Coach Ross and the staff have been able to bring in, and we look like a basketball team. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We look like a Division I men's basketball team, and we walk into that gym and we're like, yeah, we'll play with them. We can hang on with them. We can beat these guys. And I think you characterized it correctly, where we felt like we should have won the game against GW. Mm-hmm. That 5.5-minute spurt in the second half where we went cold after Forrest had a cramp and couldn't get back in while he was, lighting it up, and he scored about 15 points in 3 minutes, whatever it was. And then he gets knocked out of the game with a leg cramp. And you're like, oh, gosh, where's the scoring going to come from? Well, a couple minutes after things settled down, a couple bad shots, Landon Glasper picks it up and says, you know what, I'll take over. And he scored 12 points in a matter of a couple of minutes. And so these are the things that A&T can do now, and that wasn't the case last year. And you also mentioned hanging with Wake Forest. Like, A&T was up on Wake. And if not for what I would characterize, and I think a lot of other neutral observers would characterize as some iffy calls and some bad shots on our end, I think that's a lethal combination. When one of them happens, it's bad. When both happens, it's really hard to overcome it. Right. And so it wasn't the best situation, but we made it a game, and Steve Forbes is up there telling everybody, like, damn, those guys are pretty good, and Coach Ross is really coaching them up, and they look like a legitimate basketball team. That was a lot tougher of a game than we thought it was going to be when we scheduled it, and here we are. And people are sitting here telling us that Wake Forest is a second weekend team in the NCAA tournament, and I'm like, well, that must bode well for us. So we'll see how it all plays out. It's a long season. There's a lot of maturation that needs to take place. We need to stay healthy. But Coach Ross is doing everything that an Aggie could ask of him, which is bring in top-tier talent, coach them up as hard as possible, and let them fly when they hit out on the floor and let them do their thing.
I've been really impressed with Coach Ross and how he's took the reins of this basketball team that they were in flux, especially coming out of COVID, coaching changes and conference changes and everything else. And it kind of, the football team's going through it right now too, where it just felt like, now the football team's going through a billion injuries. Like, literally, it feels like they just can't keep healthy kids on the field. And that's really been their story this year. And they're still playing, they're still fighting hard, but the injuries are just killing them. With the basketball team, though, to your point, yeah, it does feel like Monty's kind of hit the portal, hit recruiting, and kind of started building the team the way he wanted it to look and the way he wanted them to run. I love the fact he has local kids like Cam Shell that are on this roster that people here are familiar with. He went to Parkland, left, went to school for a bit, came back home, and he's at A&T now. I want to talk a little bit before I get you out of here on junior guard Landon Glasper. You touched on him at the very beginning of the segment here. He a preseason All-CAA, unanimous, And I noticed non-power conference All-American watch list he got named to as well. Talk to me about what he brings to the team, because he was there last year, if I'm not mistaken. But this year it feels like he, as a junior, it's even more of a leader role for him. And it feels like there's times in the game, you mentioned it earlier, where he'll take control and keep the Aggies in it.
He was a true threat last year. I mean, he averaged 20.9 points per game last year and got hurt when he was playing his best basketball. So this is a young man who probably could have averaged 25 points a game last year. And, I'm thinking of the PC way to say what I'm about to say. So please don't take this the wrong way. The only reason why he's still here is because he got hurt last year. He couldn't roadshow his talents anymore. That's that good.
No, that's valid. In today's landscape, yeah, that's totally valid. And
he's a heck of a player. He's a tremendous young man, more importantly, off the floor. He's one of my favorite young men to be around. And I hope people don't take that the wrong way, that what I said, because it's true, right? Like, that injury benefited A&T.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest, right? That injury benefited A&T.
I think Coach Ross would probably agree with that,
And we're happy to have him. I hope he stays. I hope he finishes his career here. If you're going to get those accolades and you're going to keep playing, scouts from wherever you are going to end up, whether it's NBA, G League, Europe, wherever you're going to go, they'll find you, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to be a problem. You've got the notoriety. You can play wherever you want to play. And so, to me, he understands that. I think he's grown up a little bit. And he is playing a stronger brand of basketball. He is understanding how to play with others on the team. He doesn't have to do everything. And it's also comforting to him to play with Cam Shell. This is his JUCO point guard. This is his D1 point guard. This is a guy that they're like each other's shadows. They know where they are on the floor at all times. And so it's just a really good situation for Landon. It's a good situation for Cam, which in turn means it's a good situation for A&T. And we're happy to have him, obviously. And I hope that more guys will see that you can thrive under Coach Ross at A&T and really do some special stuff.
They are building something there. You just reminded me of a conversation I heard. Coach Ross, I got to get him up for an interview here soon as well. We'll have Spencer back throughout the season also. But he was talking about that relationship between Landon and Cam, and that Cam was heavy involved in getting Landon to come over. Basically, it was a couple of phone calls. Coach had called Landon, was like, "Hey, we're interested in offering you something." Like an hour went by. Landon called him back. It's like, "I'm in." He's like, "You haven't even visited yet." He's like, "Doesn't matter. I talked to Cam on the phone. Told me what the deal was, what it is with the Ag. I'm in. Like, let's go." And that's how it all went. So that's how, maybe he might have went someplace else, but maybe because of that relationship with Cam Shell, maybe they would have stuck it out here. I love the fact that they're here together trying to rebuild a foundation over at Club Corbett. But got to get Spencer out of here. I'm sorry, I keep looking over here because I have this like whiteboard that has like my life on it right now. And I'm just literally like trying to see what's what and where's where. Okay, so we are the home for the Aggie Sports Network here at Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Proud home. We've been that since 2021. They have Townsend, again, 11:30 pregame show with Donald Ware and Al Swan, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. On Sunday, 1:30 p.m. pregame show with Brian Holloway filling in for Spencer, as A&T will be taking on the Citadel, and that's a 2 p.m. tip-off for A&T on Sunday. So we're loaded with A&T sports this whole weekend. Appreciate you coming through, man, and I'll be talking to you real soon.
No, thanks for having me, Des, and I hope everybody can tune in to our games here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. We appreciate you guys and all you do to support A&T.
So coming up, more on a loaded College Basketball Friday here on the Desmond Johnson Show. Stay tuned. Welcome back into a Friday basketball edition of the Desmond Johnson Show. Desmond Johnson here with Ryan Stone. Best bets with Ryan Stone. You can catch it usually every Friday here on the Desmond Johnson Show. Get you ready. Get some money in your pocket. What's going on, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How about you?
Good. It's it's crossover season, so yeah, we don't even know where we are half the time. It's like I've got
the last month of my life has felt this way. Like I don't,
exactly, me too. I'm just
looking
at
what way
this,
is up, what way is down. Like
I have this whiteboard over in the corner of my my studio, and when I'm doing these shows, I'm kind of looking over there to see like what I'm supposed to do. And tonight we have the first round of the high school football playoffs here in North Carolina. We got 3 games going on here.
Virginia too.
Virginia starts this week too, so you got to go up there for that.
Yeah.
And then Saturday, A&T has been playing these pretty much late afternoon night games all year until this week. This week they play at 12 noon kickoff at 11:30 a.m. pregame show. So Donald Ware and Al Swall will be able to call for that. You can hear that on tobaccoroadsportsradio.com and on the light 1400 a.m. across the Triad. And then A&T basketball is Sunday at 2 o'clock against who are they playing Sunday? Citadel. They're playing Citadel at 2 o'clock on. So Brian Holloway will be on the call for that one. Filling in for Spencer Turkin on the road. 1:30 pregame show and 2 o'clock tip off for that. So loaded slate of live action sports on Tobacco Road this week. Let's jump right into it. Ryan, what's your best bets for this week? Give us your first one here. I'll go try to dig it up.
We'll start with the college football slate. Noon kickoff between Texas and Arkansas. Arkansas gave up 63 points 2 weeks ago to Ole Miss. Ole Miss is, good team, but not necessarily. So I'm going to take Texas over 35.5 on the team total. I think they'll put up plenty of points on Arkansas. I also think Texas, because they don't necessarily have a great win on their resume. Their best win is literally Vanderbilt. And they're trying to keep their argument for the college football playoffs. So I think they'll be looking for style points as well. So I'll take the Texas team total in that one against Arkansas over 35.5. That's a game that kicks off at noon on Saturday.
Noon. I was about to ask you what time did that kick off. I'm sort of looking for it on the schedule here, and I can't seem to find it. Which station is it going to be on? You know?
I think that's an ESPN. I believe it's an SEC game, so I think that's an ESPN game or an SEC network maybe. But I mean, it's Texas and Arkansas.
Oh, there it is. Okay,
it's also kind of an old school rivalry matchup. So
kind of old school.
Back to the Big 8 days.
Yeah,
Big 12 and the.
So that's Texas, the third ranked Texas at Arkansas. It's a 12 o'clock kickoff. It's on ABC and ESPN Plus. That is in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Give us your next one. Are we staying in college football?
Kansas. I took Kansas State against Arizona State minus 7.5. That's a game that kicks off at 7 o'clock for the Big 12. Kansas State really seems like they're a team that's surging to potentially be in the Big 12 championship game. Kind of got them and Colorado both kind of surging in that direction. I think that will actually be the best case scenario for the Big 12 in terms of championship game. I took the minus 7.5. I think it's been bet up to maybe minus 9, but I would still probably take this up to minus 12, something in that area. I just think Kansas State's playing really well and not really buying too much of Arizona State. And also Kansas State, as somebody who's been to games there, that's a really tough place to play. So I like Kansas State in that one minus 7.5.
Am I tripping? I'm sitting there trying to find these games. I can't find them anywhere.
Well, you're too far up right now. That's a 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Okay. So where is this game? There, Arizona State, Kansas State.
Yeah. Right now, it's actually at 7.5 still, according to this. So
no over under.
I know it got bet up at one point during the week, but maybe it's come back down a little bit. But I like it at minus 7.5. So nothing wrong with where it's currently at.
7 o'clock kickoff on ESPN Saturday. Arizona State at 16th ranked Kansas State. Kansas State with a 7.5 point line right as it stands right now today. Give us some mo.
The last one in college, I like the under in Tennessee, Georgia. That's a 7:30 game. Yeah, that's the main one on Saturday night. Under 48.5 is where I took it. Probably would still take it at under 47.5. I see it's been bet down a little bit. That wasn't the case earlier today when I was looking. But, Tennessee's quarterback is in concussion protocol. Nobody seems to really know if he's going to play. The quarterback on the other side, Carson Beck, who is who is losing money like Diddy right now. Coming into the season, he was predicted to maybe be the top quarterback in the draft, and he'd probably be lucky to go in the first round at this point because he's turned the ball over so much lately. That Tennessee defensive front's really good. So even if Tennessee's quarterback does not play, I expect this to be a lower scoring game due to Georgia's turnovers and Tennessee's defense. So I like under 48.5 in that game.
Georgia, it's weird. It feels like Georgia's like on the cusp of not getting in.
Right now they actually would not be in.
Yeah.
Based on how the rankings work. They would actually technically be, and I could go on a long rant about how much I hate the way the current setup is, because you're confusing people with the way it's set up and like ranking teams that are just rank them based on where they would actually play. Like Ohio State's ranked second, but they would actually only be fifth.
Right. Yeah.
Stop ranking them based on rank them where they would actually be in the seedings. Also, maybe just give the best 4 teams buys and not, Miami is not deserving of it.
Yeah. Because it looks Miami will be the only ACC team getting in at this point.
Miami or SMU, whoever ends up winning it. The championship, I think, is probably going to end up who gets in.
Miami's really played anybody. Now I'm sitting there thinking about it. So I
can confidently say to you that if either one of those teams is the number 4 seed and they play Ohio State, they're going home.
I would imagine if that happens, that we'll probably see a rule change or something like next year.
I think this is a 1 year. This is a 1 year thing. I think next year we're going to get, actually the top 4 teams get buys, because this is kind of ridiculous.
Because you can still do it where like the conference champions get in, they just don't necessarily get a buy.
They just don't get buys.
I mean,
they BYU or SMU or they can still be in. They just don't need to buy,
right?
Because that's a little ridiculous.
So those are your 3 in college football. You said you had a couple NFL ones.
NFL, so this one may move. It would not surprise me if this ends up coming down to 2.5. I think I've even seen some people have it at 2.5. If you can pull up the Ravens and so Baltimore -3. I still like Baltimore -3. I think Baltimore is the better team. I just don't buy the Steelers' offense. Like, I understand Russell Wilson has played pretty well, but I just don't buy that they're as good as the Ravens' offense and are going to keep up with them in a game. So I'll take the Ravens at -3. I would much prefer it at 2.5 over -3, because 3 is a key number and you can obviously push on that number. But I still like the Ravens in that spot -3, even though it's in Pittsburgh. I know Lamar Jackson has struggled against the Steelers, but Derrick Henry is now back there. So I feel like it's a little bit different.
I heard something crazy today about that rivalry that Lamar Jackson, he's got a crazy regular season record, but he's only played Pittsburgh 4 times in his career. Injuries. Yeah. They pulled him out.
And he has not played well against them.
Yeah, and he hasn't played well against them. So maybe Mike Tomlin and company
I think he'll flip it this year.
Yeah. But Baltimore, even though they may not necessarily have the best record in the NFL, they're the kind of one where I'd be like, I really don't want to play them, especially if they remember to run the football in January with Derrick Henry. Then they should be pretty hard out. If they
don't forget about running the football when that's what took you there.
Exactly, which is what put them out last year. Give me another NFL pick here,
and then the last one would be a teaser, which I know I've done a few of these lately. I teased the Bengals up to +7.5 against the Chargers, which is the Sunday night game. The Chargers currently -1.5. So I teased the Bengals up to +7.5, which carries them over that key touchdown number. Because I do think, it wouldn't even surprise me if Cincinnati wins this game. I do think, from an offensive perspective, they are better than the Chargers. But, coaching, decision-making, all that comes in the case. Regardless, I think they keep the game close. So I'll take the Bengals +7.5, and then also, on the parlay, teasing the Packers, which is a 1:00 kick against the Bears, down to a money line pick in a pick'em spot. I do think, I even thought about maybe them at -5.5, but a lot of times what you have in the NFL is when there's a coaching change, whether it's the head coach or a key position spot like the Bears have had this year with this week with the offensive coordinator, you have improved play because there's like a boost in morale. We saw the Saints do this past week when they beat the Falcons. So that's kind of what scares me off the -5.5. I think the Bears could keep it close, but I still think the Packers win the game. So that's why I say, Packers money line and Bengals +7.5 in a teaser.
All right. Well, there you go. There you go. So you got Green Bay, Chicago, and a teaser there. You got the Baltimore, Pittsburgh game in there for your NFL picks, and then the 3 picks for college football. Ryan will be back next week with some more best bets. I know some folks probably want you to sprinkle in some basketball, but we talked about it. It's kind of harder to do basketball on a Friday.
Well, basketball, they don't. A lot of times they don't put the lines out until Friday. And I mean, I can kind of, in the future when we get to. There's also not a ton of ACC teams in action on Saturday. Actually,
that's true.
I did look at the schedule. So I mean, in the future, I can tell you what I would take certain matchups up to. But right now there just isn't a ton of it. Like Duke plays Wofford on Saturday.
Yeah,
who knows what the spread's going to be on that?
I think Carolina plays American. I think on Friday night.
They play Friday. I think. And Godspeed went to Wofford because coming off the loss to Kentucky.
I would imagine they're going to be hot in Cameron on Saturday, especially the way that game ended too. With you got the Golden Boy, and he's kind of just throwing the ball away twice, and that literally ended the game.
What's crazy about that for him, and what I will say in his defense, is he only had 3 turnovers in the entire damn game, and 2 of them came in the last
90 seconds. Yeah,
and to be fair, I mean, this is not Kentucky last year. Or 2 years ago. This is a Kentucky team that has a lot of experienced college players.
I mean, he literally went and built it on the fly.
I actually think this is going to end up being a pretty good loss for this Duke team in the long run.
I will say, because I'm always, and we're about to have Arlo Bynum come on and talk about Tar Heel hoops, and Steve Wiseman come on and talk about Duke hoops in just a second. But I will say this before I let you go. Usually, I'm used to K kind of not leaving Cameron. Like they kind of stay in Durham for the most part in December, unless they go to New York or Chicago. They'll go to like a tournament or something up there, or a showcase, or Hawaii, like the Maui or something. Yeah. But most part, they spend most of the time in Cameron. And I've always said, well, my knocks on was that they never play anybody really, really tough in a true road game, non-conference, until after conference starts. And then they always lose to like some random ACC bottom tier team just out like Georgia Tech or something like early. And like, what's going on? It's because they hadn't been in an environment like that. I'm looking at their schedule. Shire has booked a very hard non-conference schedule. They've got Arizona next week. They got Kansas like a week or so after that. Yeah. They just finished playing Kentucky. It's not an easy schedule. So hats off to Duke and John Shire for actually going looking for the smoke.
Duke is going to be fine. That kid's really good.
Yeah, they're going to be okay. I'm not worried about Duke. I'm not worried about Duke.
That kid's really good.
Yeah, he might go pro. He might go pro.
He might be the number 1 pick.
Maybe. Follow Ryan on Twitter /X at Ryan Stone Sports, and catch him here every Friday for best bets. Appreciate you, man.
All right, man.
Coming up, more from the ACC here on the Desmond Johnson Show. Stick around. Welcome back to the Desmond Johnson Show. It is a basketball loaded show, but keep in mind we do have high school football playoffs starting in North Carolina tonight, and Tobacco Road Sports Radio is your home for the best coverage in the Triad. Topped off with 2 of the top teams in the state, East Forsyth taking on Butler in Kernersville, and Grimsley taking on Western Guilford. The Grimsley game's on WCOG, 1320 AM and 105.3 FM in Guilford County. The East Forsyth game will be on WTOB, 96.7 FM, 980 AM. Both games you can stream live on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. West Forsyth versus Cuthbertson will also be on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com through the launch tree. So we got 3 playoff games going on tomorrow. So definitely tonight. So definitely enjoy that. Joining me now from the Tar Heel Tribune is R.L. Bynum as we do our ACC basketball roundup. I never really got a chance to preview Carolina and NC State and our preseason stuff because so much stuff started happening at one time. But what's going on, man? I know this is kind of crossover season for you too, with basketball and football going on at the same time.
Very busy with a lot of travel.
A lot of travel, yes. I noticed that. I think I was following you on your social media, and I think I saw that you went to the Carolina Kansas game, right? I
went there. That was a blast. That was an epic atmosphere there.
I was going to say, was that the first time you've been to the Fog? Was that the first time you've ever been to the Fog, to the Fieldhouse?
First time I've ever been to Kansas. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was a bucket list venue. It was so loud the floor was shaking. I've seen a lot of Kansas games on TV, but I saw the beginning of it when they were going through their chants and everything else. I didn't realize they have that kind of like wall of fans back behind that one goal or whatever, and the whole environment just looked crazy. So that might be a bucket list for me too. Let's just start there. It's 4 questions about Carolina. Get us caught up on what Carolina's done so far. They're 1-1 on the season. They're taking on American tonight. On I believe it's ESPN Plus or the ACC network. You can find it there. So the Heels fell to number 1 ranked Kansas after coming back
down 20 points at one point in that game. Outside of RJ Davis, RL, who is the second most important player on this roster in your mind after watching him a couple of games?
Oh, it's got to be Elliot Cadeau. I mean, he in the first half, Carolina had the lead when he came out about midway in the first half, and they Kansas turned like a 3-4 point deficit into an 8-point lead, and he came back in and it got a little better, but they had a 20-point lead. He's just his work on the pick and rolls has been amazing. He is the engine that drives that offense. And when he's on the bench, the offense doesn't run nearly as well. So, after RJ, it's got to be Elliott. He's just been outstanding both ends of the court.
Oh, well, yeah, Cadeau seems like he's the best passer on the team for sure. Most improved, I'd imagine, has to be Seth Trimble. I don't know if anybody saw him turning into, a scorer. It feels like he's a guy they're going to depend on to drop 15, 16 points a game. And I don't know if we saw that before. Hell, he wasn't even here. He was transferring out and I guess decided to change his mind and came back, which you never see in any college sports, really, in today's landscape. You never see a guy leave, go in the portal, and then eventually come back. And I don't know the backstory on how he came back or what caused him to come back or anything like that, but glad that he's here. This freshman class that Carolina has, I've had a chance to see some of them a little bit over the past week or two since the season began. Which freshman has impressed you the most so far?
Ian Jackson is amazing, but Drake Powell is also good. But Ian Jackson, the hops that he has, his ability to drive to the hoop and create things is amazing. I mean, he drew so many fouls in I believe it's the Elon game. Got to the line quite a bit. Just had a monster second half. He's got tons of potential, 3-level scorer, and then he's also excellent on defense, as is Drake Powell. They're both excellent on defense, and I think Drake's 3-point shooting will come around. Those two guys are both projected as a first round picks next season, and we're seeing why.
Yeah, I do like what I'm seeing from Jackson. I know he was the highest rated one coming in. I like the fact that Hubert has the luxury of not having to depend on them right away. Like, he can bring them off the bench, bring them at their own pace. And right now they're, like the 6th, 7th, 8th guys coming off the bench right now. But I would imagine over time, Jackson in particular might figure out a way to work himself up a little bit higher in that rotation, if not maybe even starting. But other than Withers, I'm not sure who you would take out of the starting lineup to kind of put him in, because it feels like that 3-guard lineup of Cadeau, Davis, and Trimble are going to be like the core backbone of this team. Because I don't know if it was just me, but it felt like they were faster in that Kansas game. There was a couple of times where Kansas drove down, scored like real quick on a dunk or a layup or something like that, and Carolina's got the ball back up the court in like 2 seconds, and it's like already back up and they're laying it up. I'm like, man, I'm trying to remember a Carolina team that's moving this fast and scoring. Maybe they go back to like 2012. I'm not sure. Like when you had one of those, or when one of those Ty Lawson teams, or one of those with a really, really fast point, like Kenny Smith. Like, I'm just trying to think of a team that's been moving this fast, and they got 3 guards out there running it. So shout out to Hubert for doing that. But we mentioned some of the freshmen before, and I was looking through the roster, and I noticed there's not a whole lot of size on the roster in terms of like depth wise. Jalen Washington's 6'10", and freshman James Brown is 6'10". They're the only 2 players taller than 6'9" on this team. Do you think the Heels can actually win the ACC with a predominantly 3-guard lineup that I just described with Davis and Cadeau and Trimble?
I do. I mean, Hunter Dickinson, you're not going to go up against a Hunter Dickinson that many times. I think it's going to be a challenge for sure, but I think they can. I kind of liked the moments when Jalen Withers was at the 5 and you had a quicker lineup. And I think obviously losing Baycott and Ingram, those 2 with the rebounds and the points, that's huge. But there's collectively a lot of talent that's come in. I really like Ben Allen Lubin's athleticism. He's very aggressive. There are a lot of weapons there, and no, they aren't tall. They went after some big centers in the portal and came up empty. Yeah. But what they have, I think, is workable. as Hubert likes to say, it's not the height, it's the size of their heart. And I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
I'm very interested to see the potential blossoming of Jalen Washington, because the potential has been there for the past couple of years when he arrived here. And I think he came in as a 4-star, but he was injured when he got here. Hubert believed in him. And I remember Hubert talking about that he was one of the best shooting big men that he had seen in high school. So we haven't really had to see that. His role in the past couple of years wasn't really that, but now he's the starting center of this team. And I imagine he's going to be taking some threes too. So interesting seeing how he progresses. Herald Tribune's R.L. Bynum here with us, talking a little UNC hoops. Steve Wiseman will be in with us to wrap up the show and talk about Duke. Hosting American on Friday night, 8:00 p.m. They're at Hawaii next Saturday. What's the biggest concern for you after watching 2 games that you want to see the Hills address?
Well, I mean, the biggest assumptions we had coming into the seasons have been wrong. Everybody thought Kate Tyson was going to come in and maybe be this season's answer to Brady Manick, but he's 0 for 3. He came into the Kansas game, and after a defensive mistake and an air ball, he played 63 seconds. That's got to change. Yeah. And he's looked lost on both ends. That's got to change. But I tell you, if he coming in, if he told me Jalen Withers would be the best 3-point shooter in terms of total and percentage, I would have wondered what you were drinking. But he's really, I mean, he hit some big threes. Obviously, he missed a big one against Alabama, but he hit some big threes against Kansas, and he's kind of picked up some of that slack. But Tyson has got to get it together. I would think that he's going to get a lot of playing time against American, and he really needs to get his confidence back. Obviously, you don't want RJ Davis shooting 22% from 3-point range.
I was just about to say,
you got to think that's not going to keep happening.
That's not going to work. Yeah, I was looking at the stats or whatever for the team through the first 2 games, and I stopped at RJ because he's like 4 for 22 or something like that from 3-point range so far. I don't think that's going to last. So we'll just see, because RJ's going to keep shooting it. So we'll just kind of see where it goes here. But again, Carolina plays tonight, this Friday, 8 p.m. They're hosting American. You can see it on the ACC network. And then they're at Hawaii. They'll be off for the next week after that. They'll be at Hawaii then following Saturday. Are we going to get R.L. Bynum's showing in Hawaii when they go visit the Rainbow Warriors?
Yes, I'm going with my wife. The Hawaii game is actually the Friday night, but I guess on the East Coast it's Saturday because it'll be 12:30 a.m. Saturday.
That's when it's going to be live here? No. Oh, no.
Yeah, there's going to be some adjustment time-wise. It's 5 hours difference.
Oh, my gosh. I got to figure this out.
When I'm out there, not that I'm going to sit in there and watch, but the DC football game starts at 7 a.m. local time.
Man. All right. So I know this weekend I got a bunch of stuff going all over the place, and now I can plan where next weekend I'll have a late night matinee Carolina game apparently against Hawaii. So that'll do it for our UNC ACC basketball roundup. Appreciate you coming through, RL.
Hey, take care. Good to be with you.
Stand by. Steve Wiseman from the Durham Herald Sun will wrap up everything with a Duke wrap up here. How have they been the first week or two of the season? Coming up next here on the Desmond Johnson Show. Last but not least, here on the Desmond Johnson Show, this Supersized Friday edition, this basketball edition of the Desmond Johnson Show, from the Durham Herald Sun, Duke beat writer Steve Wiseman in the house. It's college basketball season, as Steve is making an appearance on Tobacco Road. What's up, man? What's going on? How you doing?
Desmond, it's good to be with you. It's good to have real basketball games to talk about after, preseason and all the kind of mediocre football we've been dealing with. Right? Basketball, here we go.
Horrible. Now, not Duke. Duke's actually doing okay.
I know.
Duke might be the best team in North Carolina, and we don't say that very often.
Right.
Hold your heads up high, Blue Devils. Want to get into some basketball with you, though. Thoughts on Cooper Flagg? Let's just start off with Cooper. 26 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks on Friday versus Kentucky, but 2 crucial turnovers basically lost the game for Duke. Initial thoughts on what you've seen so far from Cooper Flagg? Is he as good as advertised or better than advertised?
Yeah, he shows me all the skills that we thought, and the skills that I saw, when I saw him in AAU play and, Nike, EYB, all that kind of thing. He can impact the game in several different ways: block shots, scoring, rebounding, passing, steals, all that. He's still 17 years old, doesn't turn 18 until December. So mid to late December. So He's developing, he's growing into his body. And that's why we've seen the problems with cramping the first couple of games. And then obviously the other night, he even admitted, like, he was asked if he was fatigued on those last 2 plays. And he said, I wish the answer was no, but it's yes. I was, he felt the pressure all the minutes because he hadn't played that many minutes before. So I think those are things that are going to work out. I mean, you see what the NBA scouts like about him, and nobody can argue with 26-12 in that game. I mean, my Lord, that's, really good. Yeah. So, but the turnovers happened, and that's something that's not good. And so just to stick on Cooper, I think he's going to be what they thought he was. But now the bigger picture is, can Duke win what they want to win with him? Is it going to work out? Is he going to develop? And that's something we just don't know yet, but the skills are certainly there.
And again, they ran into a Kentucky team that was basically grown men. Mark Pope basically pulled 22-year-olds out the transfer portal in a big group and brought them in. And it just felt like, now granted, this Duke team isn't as young as they usually are. They do have some vets, and they did go in the portal themselves for the first time since the portal existed, pretty much, really, to bring in some reinforcements. But they're top heavy with young freshmen, again, per Duke. And it's different. I'm glad you mentioned the cramping, because that was actually my second question. What's up with the cramping? Freshman center Kamen Maluak, I think I pronounced that right.
Kamen Maluak.
I pronounced it completely wrong.
Okay, it's a tough one. It's a lot of months of practice.
Yeah, Maluak. He was limited to 10 minutes in the second half of that Kentucky game due to cramping. Cooper Flagg missed most of the second half in the opener versus Army. You think there's anything to it, or you think? I think Shires mentioned a lot of it has to do with age.
Yes,
and playing heavier minutes than they would have in high school.
Exactly. He said, these are, again, he said this after the game the other night in Atlanta, was these are young bodies that we're learning about, and they are young players, and Duke has all the resources available. It's not like they're out there guessing or just having drink pickle juice or something like that. So, of course, maybe the old school stuff would work. I don't know.
It probably would. I was just in Duke Med today. So,
there you go. Yeah. But anyway, so I feel confident they'll get this figured out. It's just, it's new. This happened to Paulo Banchero. Remember? I don't know if you do, but
I do remember that. You're right.
Yeah, he had those problems, and then they used the the analytics and the medical analysis, and they got it figured out, and he was fine. So I think it'll be fine. But it is frustrating. I know it's frustrating to John and to the fans and to the players, frankly. They want to be developing. They want to be moving their careers forward, and they're kind of stuck until they can get that straightened out.
Yeah, and that's the worst too, especially if you get it early, because as soon as you get them, they're not going away anytime soon. And literally, in the case of Common, like they kind of kept coming and going with him, throughout. So that's why he was limited to so many minutes. But the worst is like for us, if you're sleeping at 3 a.m. and catch a Charlie horse or like a calf cramp or something like that, and you spring out of bed, like that's the worst thing I can think of off the top of my head. So Duke, they're home versus Wofford on Saturday. Then they have number 9 Arizona next Friday. So they see Caleb Love and company. Then number 1 Kansas on November 26th in Las Vegas. 5th ranked Auburn on December 4th. Everyone knows I'm a Carolina fan, but I've always said regarding Duke, especially in the K era, it was really rare for them to leave Cameron in December and November. Like they pretty much stayed at home unless they were going to Madison Square Garden or they were going to Chicago or like Maui or something like that. Like there's a very specific place, New Jersey. There's very specific places they would go. They didn't really go to actual legit road games early on in the season. And then you would see them like lose to like Georgia Tech or somebody the first like 3 or 4 games of the ACC season. Everyone's like, what's going on with Duke? And it's like, they hadn't really been in a true road game yet. Shire's scheduling these games like this. And he said that, this schedule wasn't designed for us to go undefeated. Like, so he's expecting to take lumps along the way. Do you prefer Shire scheduling tough non-conference teams over Coach K basically rarely leaving Cameron in like December in previous years?
Yeah. I mean, I see his logic. Okay. But you learn more about your team doing what John's doing. So, and as somebody who follows the team and my job is to analyze it and describe what's going on, I'm going to take a lot more from them going to Arizona than I would be if they were playing, again, Wofford, whatever, somebody at home.
No,
at home
but yeah.
Right, exactly. And even last year they played Arizona, it was at home, but at least we knew, okay, that's an early season game against the top 10 team, that kind of thing.
They lost that game.
They did lose. And but this is what John, again, he says, like the other night after the Kentucky loss, he says, I feel better about this team now than I did before the game. And I know that's tough to say after a loss and everybody's mad and all that, but you learn about what you need to be in March by doing these things in November and December. And so I like this game going to Arizona. Next year, they're going to go up to West Point and play Army. They're obviously going to overwhelm the Army team as far as talent, but they're going on the road and playing at Army's gym on Veterans Day, which is kind of a cool thing. But so John is taking this different approach. Like this is his stamp on the program. This is what he wants to do.
I like it. One of the things I loved about Roy Williams, and Hubert's continued that tradition at Carolina, he would book road games in state. You see him go play UNC Wilmington, or they played Wofford in a home, I believe. Mm-hmm. They've been out here and played in Greensboro. They've gone up to the mountains, and then they'll go play these tough non-conference games. Just like they just did. They've got this home and home in Kansas, which hadn't happened, I think, in like 60 years, 70 years,
right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So for them to go put that together, I'm used to them playing tough games early on. So they might have 3-4 losses by the time they get to conference play because they've played so many tough things. Duke might slot in at 13-1 or something, and then they get an ACC play and get a true road game, and then you're kind of like, well, what's going on with Duke? But I like the fact that Shire's booking heavier in the non-conference. Outside of Cooper Flagg, though, who in your mind is the player for fans to watch, Duke fans, over the next month or so in terms of the guy that intrigues you the most?
Yeah, there's a lot there, but I'm going to say Con Knippel because he has shown a great scoring touch. He's got a quick shot, good 3-point shooter. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Luke Kennard. He's that type of player. 6'6", 6'7" wing. He had a bad night against Kentucky. He was 5 out of 20 from the field. And when I've seen them practice or play their first couple of games or the exhibitions, he was a much better shooter than that. Now, all those teams were at Cameron. So there's something about going on the road or playing away from home in a hot environment. He didn't show up very well against Kentucky, but I want to see how he develops as they go to Arizona, when they play Kansas and Vegas, that kind of stuff. How's he going to show up in those games?
I'm trying to think. I've heard his name a bunch too, because I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch a full Duke game yet. I'm probably trying to do it this weekend with everything else that's going on during crossover season. But yeah, I would probably agree with him as well, because his name is the one I keep hearing other than Cooper Flagg. That's the one that keeps popping up from like announcers and analysts and whatnot in terms of what he's doing and what he's not doing. And did he freeze? Did Steve freeze up on me? I think he did. I think Steve froze. That was the last question though. So I don't know if Steve's gonna be able to get back in. It seems like I think he's frozen. So we're just gonna end it right there. That was my last question for Duke anyway. But that's gonna be the end of this week's edition of the Desmond Johnson Show. You can catch it on youtube.com/at Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Steve's gonna be okay. Don't worry, he's just fine. It's just the screen just froze up on him. But we will see you guys